I did things a little bit different today compared to my traditional approach, but we'll get right back into that as well. Here we go. So let's see here. All right. So one thing I forgot to do, and it's not the end of the world, but um, what I wanted to show you guys is, of course, CMC's overall crypto market cap. We're sitting at 938.47 billion. BNB is trending. Pancake Swap is definitely up there. Of course, Ethereum. As far as the top 100, nothing really major on that 1 hour chart. Of course, Quant, Helium are up there, but I mean, it's not like on the 1 hour chart they're 5% up or anything. So we always, of course, take a look at that because that is a nice new feature, somewhat new. I mean, it's been around for maybe like a couple months now. That CMC, basically included was the 1 hour update, and then on the 24 hour for the top 100, Quant is really doing well, 9.36%, close to 10% for the week, and of course, let's face it, like 3% or above for Quant. I mean, that's pretty big. It's definitely going to impact the price. Quant's sitting at 31, I believe. Um, Luna Classics is like right at 30. We will give a shout out, of course, to Bitcoin SV. Honorable mention. It's basically up about 3%. That's one of Cool Cat Crypto's picks. He's basically, you know, dusting off the kitty litter off his shoulders with that one. And then on top of that, look at this. Some of the ISOs, right? So XDC, I mean, it's not really that big, but I mean, they are up there. Stellar Limbs as well. As far as my watch list, um, we won't be looking at that right now because I guess I'm not logged into it. Give me a second. I'll just reshare that.
Let's take a pause and just
Yeah.
thank Crypto Mike, aka Michael Cornwell, for the $2 donation. Thank you so much. He says, Max, attention. XDC, yeah, you know me. 8-hour candles, super bullish. ATTN.
Awesome. We'll take a look into it. We could actually pull that up on the KuCoin, and we'll do that here in a moment. I just want to show you guys my watch list real quick, see what's going on with that. Um, and nothing too amazing, at least on mine. Shiba Doge a little bit. I'm glad to see Shiba Doge is kind of still doing something because um, that was like one of the last meme coins I got into late 2020.
Yeah, I still have a
One.
small moon bag of Shiba
I
Doge
shouldn't even
too.
say late 2021. It was more like early 2022. Yeah.
Okay.
Lily Finance. I'm not even giving them honorable mention because what the heck. Uh, Ellipsis. That made brief news, as we know. I
We're
still
not
need to.
seeing your screen, by the way. I don't know if you're trying to show it.
Oh, my bad. Yeah,
That's
I
all
need
right.
to share that. My bad. My bad.
That's okay.
But there was nothing really that worthy to really share it anyway. But here we go.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Here we go. So Quant, of course, still up there. Clearpool's doing all right, sitting at 15 cents. That was up to 18 cents at one point. I still feel like Hydra is really underrated. I'll show you guys at some point in the future why that is. I do want to take notice to give you guys a chance to see what's going on with VGX. I was really, really tempted to get into that at 57 cents, and I might go ahead and get back into that. To me, this seems like it might be a good time to do so. Even though it's slightly up, I still feel like it's a decent opportunity to at least see it go up, do a 2x from here, back up to over $1. I know some of you guys have been holding it because you believe that it's going to go to $5 or more, but at the same time, I do feel as though it's definitely one that you can play around with, if you will, on the short term gains. For me, that's definitely the way I'm doing it. I'm not really looking for this it has to go to $5 or more, otherwise I'm not getting into it. Even right now it's a good entry point, and I definitely see it going back to like over $1. I mean, literally, let's say it was today. I mean, within like 2 weeks, I within that time, I definitely see it being like a 2x. It's not financial advice. That's just what I'm doing. Um, and that's about it on some of these. Of course, there's Stellar Lumens, which is right here, and we're gonna get back into this. So I'll get into the whole thing with XDC in a bit with the candles and all that, but I want to show you guys this. It says XLM, aka Stellar Lumens, will dominate the world. It says research, verify, invest, of course, on your own terms. Just kind of like we always say, not financial advice. Consider yourself lucky. The early bird gets the worm, as we know. But I want you guys to draw your attention to this. And it's kind of, it seems like a spooky, weird conspiracy nut type of thing. Somebody made it like that, but it's not really that. It's not really that far off if you think about it. So you can see the cycle of how this goes. So it says domination slash control. It comes from the top and it kind of like trickles down, right? Some people refer to this as trickle down economics. Take it as you will. I'm not trying to make any conspiracy about it. But right near the top, where the financial elite are the central banks. For instance, Central Bank of Central Banks, which is Bank International. You see the symbol here for settlements. Then right below that is International Central Banks, the IMF, the World Bank. Right below that, not far below that, is the U.S. Federal Reserve. You know, the Bank of England, Reserve Bank of Australia. You got to keep in mind these are all different categories, and just because some are on board when it comes to ISO 222 doesn't mean like some of the other ones are. Of course, the next tier you have below the national central banks are Citibank, Chase, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, HSBC, and you kind of get the gist of it, right? Next is uh, some of these other ones you see like Exxon and whatnot. Heck, even the government, right? On the very bottom is the people, planet, and all things, living things. It seems like we always get the crumbs or whatever else is left. But excuse me. One key thing I wanted to point out is how you see the domination and the control and like the tiers of where this is all at. So, I mean, if you have already one layer of this, in fact, probably like two layers at least, all right, two layers of what you see in this big pyramid are basically going to ISO 222 compliancy. They already have, and they haven't flipped the switch. So my attitude is, yeah, you see, like for instance, the U.S. Federal Reserve there and so on, and you also have to have the attitude like, well, they're not going to come on board until like 2025. But again, like I mentioned, you see these other ones do well. For instance, Bank of England, Bank of Australia, some of these other countries' banks. One would hope that the U.S. would finally realize and get their head out of their and realize, we're in. Last I checked, I think it's all the way up to 31 trillion in debt. If time is money and you truly believe that, why wouldn't you want to save some of that money? Now, on the previous show, not necessarily last night's show with Larry, but for the part two of the series, we did outline how um, the old system of Swift basically would cost countries on cross-border payments something like um, like a $60 billion fee or whatever it was. I mean, just crazy stuff. They switched to ISO and take on technology like XRP and whatnot. Those are big time savings. You get enough of those big time savings. Well, if anything, it's going to cut into the deficit something fierce. And if anything, now you can get more countries to potentially borrow from you, where it's a win for them. It helps their country, and it's a win for us because it simply doesn't cost as much. Anyway, I'm not trying to get into the make things too controversial and whatnot, but you can get the idea of where some of these banks are literally saying to themselves, "What are we waiting for? Why haven't we done this earlier?" All right. So I just want to point out some of this right here. Um, there's this statement here. It's not really a statement, but I'm going to share this with you as well. Trust lines. One of the features used within Stellar are trust lines. It's a mechanism, just in case you didn't know about this, that allows controls to be placed on an asset. In Stellar, trust lines must be created between a wallet and an asset before that wallet may hold the asset. This prevents undesired participation or receiving of assets that the user has not requested. In the same way, asset issuers can specify that an asset's trust line must be approved by the issuer before the user wallet can hold it. For the Liberty prototype, this allows the issuer to effectively whitelist only allowed users to be able to access the green bonds. The Liberty prototype utilizes the trust line approach in Stellar and integrates it into the user onboarding process to ensure only investors who qualify will be able to participate. In the case of Hong Kong government bonds, that would be holders of a valid Hong Kong ID card. Now, to me, when people say to me, "Well, what's the difference between XLM and XRP?" and we just do the typical answer of, "Well, one's technically backed by gold and one's silver," or you want to look at it from that perspective. Okay, fair enough. But these are the little things that differentiate the two. And we'll try to do a little bit more of this because I think it helps to know some of these key things. So to me, this is one key difference between the two. Now, does that mean that XRP is not going to include something like this in the future? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying for the time being, this is what I noticed. And I think this is great because you want to have um, these type of cryptos stand out in which they have these type of security uh, you know what do you call it, countermeasures or and whatnot to basically help that particular, not really help the asset, but I mean, if you hold the asset, of course it helps, but you want to see that sense of security. So I just wanted to point out some of that. There's a little bit more, and I actually want to share this. So this one's a 2 minute video. It's a pretty good one. Before I start, it says, this is of course from Vincent Owens. He doesn't have a lot of followers or anything like that, but he did a good job of sharing something that was really cool. It says the banks and central banks are broke and have been broke for many years now, which is true. The only solution we have to replace the current broken banking system is to deploy a new financial system known as blockchain. Like, it's a no-brainer. It says XRP will add ODL to this legacy. Bank, it says banking services, of course, XLM, HBAR, Quant mentions that as well. I'm going to go ahead and do a stop share. I'm going to share this in a way for you could hear the sound on that particular tab. So here we go. And here we go.
Well, Commissioner, Mr. President, I rise again, I'm afraid, to make the same old hoary speech that I've been making here for several years, and that is, it is my opinion that you do not really understand the concept of banking. All the banks are broke. Bank Santander, Deutsche Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, they're all broke. And why are they broke? It isn't an act of God. It isn't some sort of tsunami. They're broke because we have a system called fractional reserve banking, which means that banks can lend money that they don't actually have. It's a criminal scandal, and it's been going on for too long. To add to that problem, you have moral hazard, a very significant moral hazard from the political sphere. And most of the problem starts in politics and central banks, which are part of the same political system. We have counterfeiting, sometimes called quantitative easing, but counterfeiting by any other name, the artificial printing of money, which if any ordinary person did, they'd go to prison for a very long time. And yet governments and central banks do it all the time. Central banks repress the amount of interest that rates are, so we don't have the real cost of money. And yet we blame the real retail banks for manipulating LIBOR. The sheer effrontery of this is quite astonishing. It's central banks that manipulate interest rates, Commissioner. And plus, underneath all this, we talk loosely, in a rather cavalier fashion, do we not, about deposit guarantees. So when banks go broke through their own incompetence and chicanery, the taxpayer picks up the tab. It's theft from the taxpayer. And until we start sending bankers, and I include central bankers and politicians, to prison for this outrage, it will continue.
Yeah. Anyway,
Only one person agreed with him because they're all being paid off by the bankers.
probably.